to the right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Jerich Show. I, as always, am Javvad Malik. And, oh, hold on, I was meant to do this. Hello, everybody, I'm Javvad Malik, and with me is a big surprise. It's, as always, Erich Crone. How are you doing, Erich?
I'm doing pretty good. You know, I got to say that was a wonderful intro you did right there. And I'm glad, as always, it is you when you're here.
I know. We, accept no imitations. That's all I say.
Right. So what do you got going on today, Javvad? You had a couple of things I think are pretty interesting. So let's hear what we want to talk about today.
First off, I want to talk about the Russians. That was a terrible example of a Russian accent.
Really was. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I don't. Yeah, doing accents is not one of my many talents. Sorry to disappoint. But we know, or we hear about, and there's lots of threat intel reports published that say Russians are behind a lot of organized crime, state crime, and what have you. But its attribution is really, really difficult in security unless you actually go to someone's place and they're there with the server running and they're sending the emails and they've got the decryption key for ransomware. It's really hard to finger someone. So this was somewhat of a gift when a Russian individual decided to get on a plane, fly over to the US, into Nevada, meet with an employee of an organization that they'd identify as a target, and offered him $500,000 if he would install some malware on the internal network. And this is a fascinating story. So here it is in ZDNet. The employee said, well, can you give me 50 grand up front? And they're like, no, we've never given anyone any money up front, but it's perfectly safe. You can go, you can install it. You won't be, caught up in the middle of it. Actually, if you don't like any of your employees, you can make it appear as if they installed it, so they get the blame. We've done it in many companies before. A last company we done it at, we made $4 million from it by extorting them for the information. So we can give you $500,000, no risk to you. You'll get the money in Bitcoin or cash, however you prefer. So he's like, okay, if you're not giving me money up front, I want $1 million. So they're like, okay, we'll give you $1 million. And the individual who was brokering the deal said, yeah, okay, they've agreed to $1 million. You do realize this has reduced my fee to a mere $250,000 now. But the individual, the employee, he then went to the feds, who then they wiretapped, or they surveyed this individual. They got all the information they needed, and then they went and they picked him up from the airport as he was trying to flee back to Mother Russia. So this is like a really interesting new way, a different way that you don't really hear about very often in insider threat. What are your key takeaways from this, Erich?
Well, this is like the cloak and dagger kind of stuff, that you're used to seeing like the spy movies out of, right? So the person's coming around and they're doing the dead drop and they're, all that kind of stuff. It's just kind of funny that, they would use things like, oh, it's perfectly safe. And, you can blame it on someone else. Hey, is there someone you don't like? Someone, that keeps eating your food in the lunchroom or something. And just being able to do that is pretty wild. So I think it's interesting because you don't hear of these in-person types of stories like this very often. We're used to seeing things like LinkedIn or other social media groups being used to recruit people to do cybercrime, but very rarely do we see this like full-on cloak and dagger thing. I'm picturing in my head, this Russian guy with the big furry hat and trench coat, running around in Nevada of all places. That's just where my mind goes. But it is interesting to know that this kind of stuff is going on. Now, this doesn't sound like it was nation state. This sounds like it was more like an organized group. But even so, that it's pretty crazy. And lately we've been seeing a lot of stuff from nation state stuff. We've been seeing stuff from North Korea. There was recently some talk about the Beagle Boys, which are folks that are doing cryptocurrency stealing and theft. And and all kinds of other kinds of theft with that, which I always laugh at because the Beagle Boys are some characters from the DuckTales group, if you've ever seen that. They were the bank robbers and stuff always after that. So that's probably where that comes from. But it's pretty wild. We see a lot of this stuff going on from foreigners targeting us here in the US or in the UK or in these other areas. But again, you don't really think about them showing up in person with a USB key like, hey, go plug this in. Everything's good. It'll be fine. And, if they didn't if they didn't pay him the $1 million, what's he going to do about it? Right? What do you do at that point?
Exactly. It's not like you're going to go to the feds at that point and say, hey, some shady organization said plug this in and we'll give you $1 million, and I plugged it in, our company's ground to a halt and they've not paid me, so please can I take out some legal action against them? I think that will put them in really hot water.
Yeah, it's like calling the cops saying, hey, my meth dealer shorted me, or something like that. It just makes no sense. Why would you even trust people like this, especially when they're not giving you money up front? And I heard a lot of claims like, we made $4 million last time, we do this, it'll be fine. How do you even go through and check that out? Is there like, somewhere where you can, like the glass door of Russian attackers or something like that? 4 stars, would do business again.
Yeah. Now you're just giving them ideas, aren't you? If that doesn't already exist on the dark web, it probably will do by the end of the week. So
yeah, they can keep the attribution. I don't want any part of that. No, that is interesting. All right. So what else you got?
What else? I've got this week, Jeff Bezos was in the news. He's the first person whose personal wealth exceeded $200 billion. So he can be forgiven for, losing a bit of change down the back of the sofa. In this case, Amazon was allegedly fleeced for $19 million over the course of a few years by 4 brothers.
That's petty cash. That's out of the petty cash drawer, I'm sure.
That is literally the equivalent of like finding money, some change beneath the sofa. It's literally that. I mean, I've got 19 million between friends. But
so how'd they do this? How'd this work?
It was so simple. That's the beauty of it. So when you buy stuff from Amazon, sometimes it's things that are from third parties, and sometimes it's stuff that's fulfilled by Amazon. So it's sent to their warehouse in advance, and they list it, and then they sell it. And once it's sold, it's you get your cut or what have you. It's kind of like a drop shipping type of agreement, from what I understand. Now, if you're a wholesaler that supplies Amazon with products, you get ASIN numbers for every product. And so you stick those on the label, and when they go to the Amazon warehouse, they scan it, and that shows up in inventory and what have you. Now, what the wholesalers have the ability to do is to change which products those ASIN numbers are associated with. And this is for legit reasons, in terms of like maintaining the accuracy, to correct mistakes, to keep updated products and all that kind of good stuff. So what they found was that by simply swapping the ASIN number from one product to another, they could send a cheap product and bill it at a much higher rate. So in one instance, Amazon ordered 12 canisters of disinfectant spray. Now, each spray costed $94.03. But instead of sending the sprays, they sent 7,000 toothbrushes. And because they used that ASIN number, each toothbrush was billed at $94.03. So they then billed Amazon for $650,000.
That's like government prices for things like toothbrushes.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's this is basically what big consultancies do. They send you to the partner to close the deal, and then they send you like a really cheap young resource straight out of college to do the hard work, and they bill you at the partner rates. So
what's interesting to me about this is that there was no discrepancy in the amount. I mean, here we ordered, a dozen of these or whatever, and got 2,000 in. Oh, sure, we'll just find a different spot on the shelves. I mean, this kind of shows you it's probably a very automated process, and so there's probably not much thinking behind it. So what do? They scan, bloop, 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 and wow. So, okay, so where did this end up going?
So they kept on doing it. They ran it for a couple of years.
Couple of years.
Yeah. I think this started in 2018. So it was very deliberate. It wasn't a mistake that anyone made. And they had their WhatsApp group chat confiscated as part of the legal hold, and there was some incriminating messages in there.
I'll bet.
So one message is listed over here: open accounts under dummy names and they can look for no one. He allegedly wrote in a WhatsApp in the fall of 2018.
Wow. This all reminds me, Javad, of that case where that Lithuanian guy, he was like 48 years old. He spun up some offshore companies that had very similar names to the suppliers for Google and Facebook, I think it was, and it ended up bilking him for like $100 million by just sending him invoices from this similar sounding organization. He was arrested, but he got $100 million before they figured out, hey, wait a minute, this really isn't that supplier.
Yeah, exactly. And you'd think if these brothers had stopped after they'd made $500,000.
Yeah, or maybe just a little bit more, enough to go retire in a nice place, go buy yourself an island or something and call it good. That's the thing, is they keep going with this and keep going with this. It does make me wonder, though, how many times do people do this stuff and they don't get caught? Like, it just continues to run.
Exactly. And why haven't you told me my color balance has really messed up again? I'm looking like a Smurf.
You are. I find if you hold a yellow Post-it note up to the camera, it'll do well for you.
Pull it for that one again. Hold on. Let me hold mine.
Is that a floppy disk? Hey, that worked. Oh, wow.
It's I don't know what it is, but I use it as a coaster for my coffee cup.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. All right. Well, those were some pretty interesting stories today. So well done on picking those up. It kind of makes my mind reel and boggle a little bit at how much money people are making through some of these scams and through some of these games. And even, having Russians run around going, I'll give you $1 million to plug in a USB key. It's just a wild, wild world we live in. It is indeed. And we're going to use some of those ideas as inspiration for talk we're putting together, hopefully in time for RSA. But that's all we can say about that, because we're both under NDA. Yes, definitely a friend EA. Yeah. At the very least, yes, definitely. So that'll be fun. That'll be very interesting. But yeah, we can learn from some of these techniques, huh? Yeah. All right. So with that, my lighting's really screwed up. I have no idea what's happened. So it's like I'm shooting one of those film noir style, like black and white with the big shadows. And apologies, folks. This is amateur hour in the UK side here today. This is why we have our tagline. With geez, I can't. It's so bad right now. Yeah. So. Timely topics, poorly presented. This is why we do this. My goodness, man. Okay, I'm going to kick you out of the studio now. So thank you very much for joining us, everyone. We'll see you again next week on The Jerich Show. Goodbye.